Have you ever paused, really paused, to consider this? What if your joy, your peace, your very sense of purpose wasn't just shaped by your thoughts, but by the people you let walk beside you? We often hear that we become the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. But the truth runs even deeper than that. The relationships you cultivate or tolerate do more than shape your mood. They mold your mind. They define your standards. They influence your sense of what's possible. And in a world overflowing with noise, where everyone wants to be seen, heard, liked, how do you draw in the rare ones? The high-value souls who elevate you, challenge you, see you, and walk with you. Not just when it's convenient, but when it counts. Because here's the quiet tragedy few people talk about. Most of us aren't surrounded by enemies. We're surrounded by comfort. By familiar, low-energy relationships that do nothing but drain the very life we're trying to build. Friends who flatter but don't tell the truth. Partners who mirror our insecurities instead of reflecting our potential. Social circles rooted not in growth, but in survival. And that's not living. That's lingering. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But I'd add, it also depends upon the quality of your connections. Because even the strongest mind is not immune to the weight of a toxic relationship or the silence of a shallow one. So today, we step into something sacred. We're not just talking about romance. We're not just talking about career networking. We're talking about the quiet architecture of your life, the souls you allow close enough to influence your decisions, your identity, your peace. You'll learn not only how to attract high-value relationships, but how to deserve them. How to become the kind of person who naturally draws depth and respect, not because you're louder, but because you're realer. If this resonates, if you're tired of surface level, if you're hungry for real growth and deeper bonds, then stay with me. And if you find value in this journey, I invite you gently, not for me, but for your own evolution, to like this video, subscribe to Stoic now, and join a tribe of people who want more than just motivation. We want transformation. Now take a breath, and let's step into the truth together. Number 1. The hidden cost of staying connected to the wrong people. Some of the most painful chapters in our lives are not marked by isolation, but by the presence of the wrong people. And yet, we rarely talk about it. We move through life thinking relationships just happen. That connection is automatic. That chemistry equals compatibility, and that presence equals peace. But slowly, quietly, the cracks begin to show. You start feeling drained after conversations. You find yourself shrinking in order to keep the peace. You laugh on cue, but feel hollow in the silence. That's when you realize being surrounded doesn't mean you're seen. And connection, without substance, becomes the most deceptive form of loneliness. We chase connection like breath because we're wired for it. But here's the uncomfortable truth most of us aren't ready to face. The relationships we attract reflect not our desires, but our self-concept. You can only draw in what your current self-image believes you deserve. That's why the person who doubts their worth ends up with partners who mirror that doubt. Why those stuck in cycles of people-pleasing attract takers, not givers. Why the one craving depth often settles for distraction. Because real intimacy requires vulnerability, and vulnerability feels terrifying when you don't yet trust yourself. Think about the times you stayed in a friendship long past its expiration, because confronting the truth felt heavier than carrying the lie. Or the moments you dated someone who kept you guessing, believing that love needed to feel like chaos in order to be real. That wasn't love. That was addiction to unpredictability, a trauma response mistaken for passion. This is the challenge so many face when trying to attract high-value relationships. They don't begin from clarity, but from craving. And craving, left unexamined, makes us blind. It makes us settle. It makes us project fantasies onto people who haven't earned our reality. Seneca said, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you." But how can you do that when you're still healing from the wounds inflicted by those who were supposed to love you? How do you attract strength when all you've known is survival? The root of the issue lies deeper than social skills. It's not about pickup lines or networking tactics. It's about energetic alignment, a term the Stoics would translate as virtue in action. If your internal landscape is cluttered with fear, insecurity, and self-doubt, no amount of charisma will bring the right people into your life. You'll attract relationships that fit your chaos, not your calling. Many people never stop to audit the relationships they've built. They focus so much on finding someone who accepts them, they forget to ask, do I accept myself? And this is where the modern struggle hits hardest. In an age of endless connection, we're lonelier than ever. Our feeds are full of filtered friendships and curated moments. We're taught to perform connection rather than live it. And in doing so, we create bonds that are wide but shallow, frequent but fragile. So we end up in patterns, over-explaining ourselves to people who never really listened, overextending in hopes of being chosen. And the moment we show our true selves, the silence, the withdrawal, the loss, and we take it personally. But here's what the Stoics would have us remember. The best revenge, Marcus Aurelius wrote, is not to be like your enemy. That includes the people who ghosted you, manipulated you, or couldn't handle your truth. The lesson isn't to close your heart, but to clean it, to make space for something real, something higher. This is the heart of the challenge in attracting high-value relationships. You must do the inner work first, because no one can value you more than you value yourself. And no one will stay in your life with respect if you don't first respect your own boundaries, your own needs, your own worth. Let me be clear, this isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. You don't need to have all the answers, but you do need to ask better questions. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt safe enough to be fully seen? Do the people in your life nourish your peace or drain your presence? Have you mistaken consistency for compatibility? Availability for alignment? These questions aren't easy. They stir the soul, but in their answers, you'll find the beginning of transformation. Remember, high-value relationships don't just appear. They are summoned by who you become when no one is watching, by how you treat yourself when no one is cheering, by the silent contract you make with your own integrity long before you extend trust to another. And yet, for many, the default becomes settling, lowering standards not out of humility, but out of fear, accepting breadcrumbs because the idea of being alone feels worse than being underfed emotionally. But here's the Stoic truth that changes everything. Aloneness is not abandonment, it's alignment and progress. It's the sacred silence that clears the space for what's real. It's where clarity lives. And from that clarity, attraction begins, not with effort, but with embodiment. So if you've been wondering why high-value relationships seem just out of reach, take a breath. This isn't a curse. It's a call, not to chase, but to calibrate. You're not too much. You're just in rooms too small for your spirit. You're not unlovable. You're just misaligned. You're not alone. You're simply in the sacred season of becoming someone who no longer accepts less than they deserve. And that is the foundation from which we now build. Let's step deeper into the science, the strategy, and the soul of true attraction. Number 2, master your energy, attract high-value connection. Attraction isn't magic. It's math. It's not about luck, it's alignment. And it doesn't start with them. It starts with you. Too often, we treat attraction like a lottery, as if meaningful connections are something we stumble upon by chance. But the truth is far more empowering and far more confronting. Because the moment you stop chasing luck is the moment you have to start taking responsibility. This is where the Stoics guide us, not into fantasy, but into form, not into charm, but into character. Let's explore the quiet architecture behind attraction, the invisible forces that determine who is drawn to you, who stays, and who disappears the moment your mask falls away. First, we must begin with self-awareness, not the buzzword, but the battlefield. True self-awareness is the ability to observe yourself without justification. It is the rare skill of knowing where your actions come from, what your energy communicates, and why you crave what you crave. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." The modern translation? What you carry inside becomes the signal you send out. If you move through the world with scarcity in your heart, always believing you're not enough, that there's not enough love to go around, you will attract relationships built on fear, on codependency, on silent competition. But when your inner narrative shifts from lack to clarity, everything changes. Here's the psychological truth. People are drawn to emotional coherence. That means your energy, your words, and your actions align. You don't say you're confident while your body begs for approval. You don't claim peace while your eyes betray desperation. You don't pretend to love yourself while hoping someone else does it for you. The human brain is wired to detect incongruence. We feel it, even if we can't name it. That's why some people seem magnetic even without trying. They're not performing. They're not perfect. They're just real. And authenticity is rare in a world addicted to impressions. So, if you want to attract high-value relationships, start here. What is the story you are silently telling others about your worth? Is it confidence? Or is it need? Because the science of attraction is rooted in biology, but activated by belief. Our subconscious minds pick up on microsignals, tone, posture, language, even breath rhythm, that reveal emotional state. You may think you're hiding your insecurity, but it's leaking through your eye contact, through your pacing, through your silence. The same goes for self-trust. It can be felt before you speak a word. High-value individuals, those rooted in purpose, growth, self-respect, are drawn not to charm, but to congruence. They seek depth over display, truth over tactics. And if you're trying to fake your way into their world, you'll be exposed, gently or brutally, because they've learned the hard way what misalignment costs. But when you embody your truth, when you show up not needing to impress, but simply expressing who you are, you become unmistakable, unshakable, attractive in a way that isn't loud, but magnetic. Now let's talk about listening. Not just hearing, but the kind of listening that makes people feel seen. One of the most powerful tools in building high-value relationships is active presence. That means your eyes are soft, your mind is quiet, your attention isn't calculating what to say next, it's fully receiving. Because people don't remember what you said, they remember how they felt around you. And the rarest feeling in the world today? Being understood. This is not just a poetic insight, it's biological. When someone feels deeply heard, their brain releases oxytocin, the trust hormone. It lowers defenses. It builds bridges. It transforms ordinary interaction into meaningful connection. But this is where most people miss the mark. They want to be interesting before they learn to be interested. They want connection without offering presence. But presence, in its purest form, is the doorway to intimacy. Seneca once said, "One of the most beautiful qualities of true friendship is to understand and to be understood." And that understanding doesn't come from intellect. It comes from attention. So, the question becomes, are you listening to connect or to reply? Let's go deeper still, to authenticity. This is where the emotional courage of Stoicism meets modern psychology. To be authentic, you must first confront the parts of yourself you've been hiding. You must get honest about your values, your wounds, your needs, and then express them not with shame, but with strength. Because authenticity is not just about showing the pretty parts. It's about standing in your truth when it's inconvenient. Saying no when silence would be easier. Setting a boundary when pleasing would be safer. High-value people are not drawn to perfection, they're drawn to self-honesty. When you can own your shadows without apology, when you can share your story without performance, you become the kind of person who no longer needs to seek validation. And paradoxically, that's what draws it in. Let's talk about emotional independence. This is the soul of the Stoic way. You don't need someone else to make you feel whole. You don't need their text to feel worthy. You don't need their validation to feel seen. You've cultivated your own garden. And when someone enters that garden, they don't become the sun, they become a guest. This shift is everything. Because when you stop chasing attention, you start commanding respect. Not through games or manipulation, but through quiet, grounded energy. You become the kind of person people miss when they leave, not because you filled a void, but because you stood in your fullness. Remember, high-value relationships don't arrive because you need them. They arrive because you no longer need the wrong ones. This is the paradox of attraction. The less you need from others, the more they are drawn to you. Because need creates pressure. Pressure repels. But presence draws. So ask yourself today, am I cultivating the soil from which connection grows? Am I aligning my energy, my values, and my actions in a way that naturally attracts what I seek? And more importantly, am I becoming the kind of person I myself would want to meet? The Stoics knew that the world cannot give what you haven't first given to yourself. And in the realm of relationships, that wisdom is gold. Before we move into strategy, hold this close. You don't attract what you chase. You attract what you embody. And when you align your presence with your purpose, connection finds you. Quietly, powerfully, naturally. Let's now explore the how, the practical tools that transform this insight into transformation. Because it's one thing to know the truth. It's another to live it. Number 3, becoming the magnet, not the mirror. The shift from seeking high-value relationships to attracting them isn't about strategy. It's about becoming a living embodiment of what you long for. Think of it like this. You don't chase the sunrise. You align yourself with it. You wake early. You position yourself in the right direction. And then you receive. High-value people move the same way. They're not drawn to performers, to approval seekers, to those trying to be chosen. They're drawn to those who are already aligned, already awake, already whole. So how do you become that person? It begins with the practice of self-curation. Not self-improvement, not self-perfection, self-curation. Self-curation means deliberately choosing what energies, thoughts, habits, and environments you allow to shape you. It means filtering your inputs the same way an artist selects only the colors that serve the painting. Start with your morning. Before the world floods you with noise, what are you feeding your mind? Are you reaching for your phone or for your values? Are you letting others dictate your emotional tone, or are you setting it yourself? The Stoics knew that control begins not in the external, but in the first few thoughts of the day. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." That mindset isn't fluff. It's armor. Because when you enter the world with intention, you attract others who live the same way. Your frequency changes. And like a tuning fork, others begin to resonate with you or fall away. Next, practice emotional self-regulation. We are emotional beings, but our power lies in how we respond to emotion, not how we suppress it. You don't need to be emotionally detached to attract strong relationships. You need to be emotionally disciplined. That means feeling everything, but not letting those feelings dictate everything. Epictetus put it simply, any person capable of angering you becomes your master. That includes the date who ghosts you, the friend who withdraws, the colleague who disrespects you. If you react from impulse, you lose power. If you respond with grounded awareness, you gain it. So when someone disappoints you, don't spiral. Pause. Observe. Ask, what is this teaching me about my standards, my boundaries, my growth? This reflection is what separates the reactive from the magnetic. And those who master it, they don't just attract better people, they attract better outcomes in every area of life. Now, let's turn to one of the most underrated tools in attraction, mystery. Not manipulation, not games, but sacred space. In today's hyper-connected world, we overexpose ourselves. We share everything. We explain everything. We give so much, so fast, that we rob others of the opportunity to discover us. But high-value attraction thrives on discovery. You don't need to tell your whole story on the first meeting. Let people earn access. Let your energy unfold over time, like chapters in a book. When you give space for someone to lean in, you're no longer pushing, you're pulling. Naturally, powerfully. Mystery isn't about hiding. It's about honoring your depth. When you stop over-explaining, over-justifying, and oversharing, you communicate one powerful truth. I am enough, just as I am. And in that silence, people listen. Another powerful shift? Purpose over performance. One of the quickest ways to attract the right people and repel the wrong ones is to live with purpose. People can feel when you're chasing applause versus when you're walking in mission. You don't need to have your entire life figured out, but you do need to be walking towards something real. A vision, a craft, a standard. Purpose breeds presence. It anchors you. It keeps you from compromising your values just to fit in. And here's the beauty of it. When you're deeply engaged in something that matters to you, you naturally attract those who are engaged in something that matters to them. You stop needing to chase chemistry because alignment takes its place. Let's not forget boundaries. They're not walls. They're gates. And you are the gatekeeper. High-value relationships don't thrive without boundaries. In fact, boundaries are what make a high-value relationship possible. They tell others, this is what I expect. This is what I accept. This is what I will never tolerate. Not as a threat, but as a standard. And standards, unlike ultimatums, create clarity, not conflict. They protect your peace, and they attract those who value it. You don't need to beg for respect. You embody it. You don't need to demand loyalty. You inspire it. That's what boundaries offer. A container for connection to grow in safety, in honesty, in mutual regard. Now let's talk about the most critical transformation of all, living as if you already have what you desire. It sounds paradoxical, but it's pure Stoic alignment. You don't wait for the relationship to feel loved. You become love in your habits, in your mindset, in how you show up. You don't wait to be respected. You act in a way that commands respect through dignity, clarity, and consistency. Seneca taught, "It is not the man who has little, but he who desires more, that is poor." If you walk through the world needing someone else to validate you, you become poor in spirit. But if you walk with wholeness, you become rich, and richness attracts richness. So begin today, not by chasing connection, but by becoming connection. Look in the mirror and ask, do I live in a way that makes people feel safe, seen, and inspired? Do I speak with integrity? Do I treat others, not as tools, but as temples? This isn't performance. This is embodiment. And when you live this way, anchored in values, grounded in presence, guided by purpose, you don't just attract high-value people. You repel everything that is no longer aligned with who you are becoming. That's the true magic of attraction. Not strategy, not seduction, but sovereignty. You become the sun, not the shadow chasing the light. And those who are meant for you, they find you, because they were already walking toward the same horizon. When the soul recognizes home, if you've come this far, through reflection, revelation, and recalibration, then something in you is already changing. Not because of my words, but because of your willingness to listen to your own. You see, the journey to attracting high-value relationships is not external. It never was. It's not about finding the right person. It's about becoming someone who no longer settles for less than what their soul whispers they deserve. It's about remembering what the Stoics always knew, that peace begins not when others validate you, but when you no longer require it to feel whole. It's about becoming so internally rich that you're never again emotionally bankrupt in someone else's presence. When you know your worth, not in a loud, performative way, but in that grounded, sacred way that only deep work can create. You move differently. You stop chasing. You stop convincing. You stop explaining. You begin attracting. You attract people who respect your boundaries because you uphold them without apology. You attract those who value your presence because you no longer give it away to earn temporary company. You attract relationships that reflect not your loneliness, but your liberation. And here's the beautiful paradox. Once you stop seeking validation in others, you create space for real connection to enter. Because connection is not born from need, it's born from alignment. Seneca wrote, "You must live for yourself before you may live for another." That is not selfishness. That is wisdom. Because when you live for yourself, not in arrogance, but in truth, you no longer bring desperation to the table. You bring presence, you bring peace, and you bring power. So now, I invite you to pause, not in passivity, but in reverence. Think of the people you've allowed into your heart, your space, your energy. Which ones reflect who you were, and which ones point to who you're becoming? This isn't about shame. It's about clarity. And with clarity comes choice. You get to choose, every day, in every interaction, what kind of relationships you will welcome, what kind of energy you will mirror, what kind of soul you will stand beside. And when you begin to choose from a place of virtue, of grounded presence, of inner alignment, you stop losing yourself in the pursuit of others. Instead, you find others who are walking the same path, not ahead, not behind, but beside you. This is your moment, not to become someone else, but to return to the deepest version of who you already are. So if today's message stirred something within you, if it whispered a reminder, or maybe a permission, you are not alone. Leave a comment below. Tell me what resonated. Share a story. Let this be a space where like minds connect, not for noise, but for meaning. And if you felt the truth in these words, subscribe to this channel, Stoic Now, where we dive deeper into what truly matters, where we speak not to impress, but to awaken, where we remember that strength can be soft, that wisdom can be quiet, that clarity is a revolution. You are not here to beg for crumbs. You are here to break bread with those who bring peace, who hold depth, and who mirror back the best in you, not by flattery, but by frequency. And that journey, it begins right now, with how you see yourself, with how you carry yourself, with how you choose to show up, even when no one's watching. You are already enough. Now live like it, and let the right ones find you, not because you chase them, but because you became the kind of person they were always searching for. Until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, and stay true. You are the home someone's soul is looking for. And perhaps it's time to become that home for yourself first.